Today I'm at the Russian embassy in London talking to Mr. Alexander Yakovenko, who's just taken up the post as the new Russian ambassador to the UK. He was formerly of the press department at the ministry in Moscow. Mr. Yakovenko, thank you very much for talking to RT. Congratulations on your new posting and a very warm welcome to London. Now, you took up your first post as a diplomat in 1976. How do you think that working for the diplomatic service and diplomatic relations between countries in general have changed since then?
I think since that time, there were quite a serious changes. First of all, if you look at the agenda of the leaders of the countries and the agenda of the negotiations between the ministers of foreign affairs, you can find that, 35 years ago, more than 50% were the bilateral issues. Now, when the ministers are meeting, they are talking about the climate change, they are talking about the international security. So basically, the big issues, the global issues, takes almost 60 or 70% of the agenda. And that is very important. This is first. Second, there are no diplomats in the pure sense. I remember my experience when I headed the Russian delegation on the International Space Station negotiations. For us that was a challenge. And since there was a political decision that the diplomats should head this negotiations process, well, I had my vis-a-vis, in the U.S. State Department, who basically started learning the subject together with us. But after 5 years of negotiations, we made a good treaty, and the space station, is on the orbit. That means that we are bringing more and more specialists, which has nothing to do with the diplomacy. But these specialists are very important, for the international issues. This is second. Public diplomacy. It's very important, and in all democratic countries, you hear the voice of the parliament, you hear the voice of the people, and the diplomats, of course, are taking all these things into account. That is very important for the foreign policy of every country. And media. Media is very interesting. You can wake up in the morning and sometimes you receive the news much faster than you can get this from the embassy. And everybody is watching, Russia Today or BBC or CNN, and of course everybody is aware of what's going on. But the role of the embassies is still very important, because ambassadors, they are talking to the heads of states, to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We have everyday contacts between the different departments. That means that we have the precise information what's going on in the country, and this is information is so-called certified. So on one hand we have some old stories, but on the other hand we have a new let's say dimension of the diplomacy, which is quite normal.
On a human level, relationships between the UK and Russia are very good. Lots of Britons work in Russia. Russian culture is widely celebrated here. But on a diplomatic and political level, they're not so good. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's the task, for the diplomats and for the political leaders, to get the, of course, to do their best, to have good political relations. And as far as the Russian-Britain relation, I would like to say that the last year was very fruitful from that point of view. There were 2 meetings of the Medvedev, the President of Russia, and the Prime Minister of Britain. That was in Canada and in Seoul. We expect the visit of Mr. Lavrov. This will be next week, which is very important. In November, Mr. Haig was in Russia. The negotiations were very productive, and we expect the visit of Mr. Cameron this year. In the embassy, we're starting preparing this visit. So the texture of the political contacts are very important. But I would like to say what is even more important, that, of course, as you said, the connections between the people. And Russian culture is probably this is the test for that. And we know that a lot of events are going on in London. A lot of people are coming. Russians feel comfortable in London. We have thousands of them who are doing business, who just simply live here. And what is very important, that the economic relations are going very well. And the recent deal between the BP and the Rosneft was just one of the examples. But if you look at in a broader sense what's going on with the business, that's the good indicator is the level of the trade. I mean, we had maximum $23 billion before the crisis. Now we're around $14 billion, but we're moving very fast to restore this level. And of course, Britain is the fifth largest investor in the Russian economy. That means that sometimes you're reading in the newspapers that the climate is not so good, you know, but if you look at the deeds, you'll find that the big business is really interested, you know, in the big deals. And the last meeting of the International Committee of Trade and Investment just showed that we had 6 dimensions, 6 directions of the cooperations, and we are planning to cooperate in different areas, like, for example, the Brits will help us to make the international financial center. We expect to cooperate on the energy efficiency. So basically, I'm very optimistic about the economic areas of cooperation between our 2 countries.
And as far as your job goes, what areas have you targeted that you will focus on in terms of cooperation?
I'll tell you frankly, I have to point, you know, all the areas. So this is politics, definitely. This is economy. This is technology, because, you know, we are building Skolkovo. The Brits are building, you know, the same center not far from London. So basically, we're talking about the modernization, and they're talking about the cooperation based on the knowledge. And of course, this is culture, you know, contact between the people, visa regime. We're in favor of the better conditions, you know. We want the same conditions as we have with the European Union. And we're ready, you know, to move in this direction, and definitely we'll try, you know, to seek the good reaction, you know, from the UK on that side. So, I mean, the whole area, because, you know, there are no small questions in the bilateral relations.
You were head of the press department at the ministry in Moscow. How do you assess the British press, particularly the large section of it that's taken up by tabloid newspapers? Do you think that British people can get an accurate perspective on international affairs from their own press?
Well, I think that first of all, the British press is global. That is very important. So when I was in Moscow, you know, I was always reading, you know, the British newspaper, because they are not concentrated just on the local issues. They are taking the issues globally, and in this sense, they are very competitive. Second, you know, there is a fast-growing internet. And the third, what is very interesting to me, is that in Britain, you are trying to find the new ways how, you know, to present the news. And the last idea of the Murdoch, you know, to issue the new, let's say, the hybrid between the newspaper, between the, I mean, in internet, in the printed version. It's a very interesting, it's very challenging question, and of course, definitely, it's very interesting, you know, for the Russian press, because, you know, if you look at the Russian internet, you know, it's basically the same as in UK. I mean, they are just copying a lot of things. But if you have a global look at the press of the UK, I would like to say that they get adequate picture of what's going on in the world and on the national level too.
And what impact do you think British press coverage has on you carrying out your duties as ambassador?
Well, for me it's very important, because definitely ambassadors should read very carefully the newspapers, because there are first official information, second you have comments, and the third, this is, you know, you just can't live without that.
The UK still harbours people sought under the Russian legal system, people like Berezovsky, Zakayev, and most recently Mukhtar Ablyazov, who is the subject of the largest claim ever made in a UK commercial court. What do you think it will take for the UK to change its position on that kind of cooperation with Russia?
Well, this is a long story, but it seems to me that there are some legal procedures, and definitely we have to follow these legal procedures. And you know, you just cannot say, you know, in general, there are some specific cases, and of course we have to deal with every specific case, you know, case by case basis. So I wouldn't say that, you know, you just change something globally. There are some, I mean, we have positions, you know, on these matters, and I think that we have to continue the dialogue between two countries. And of course, this dialogue is going on the level of the legal authorities and of course on the political level.
And will you be pushing for the UK to change its stance on cooperation with Russia in matters like these?
I'm not going just, this is a long story. I would like to say that, for example, if there are some rules in every country, and for example, when you are talking about the people whom we're asking, you know, to bring to Russia, you know, definitely we would like to have the situation when the British side would hear us. You know, that is very important for the dialogue.
And are you suggesting that they're not hearing you now?
Sometimes not, sometimes yes.
Ambassador Yakovenko, thank you very much.
Thank you.